everyone knows Portland. Everyone knows Crater Lake. You have seen both of those on a dozen lists, and I am not here to waste your time repeating what everyone already said. Oregon is one of the most geographically diverse states in the country. A coast that is genuinely unlike any other coastline in the lower 48, a high desert that most people do not know exists, a river gorge with 90 waterfalls, ancient forests, and a volcanic landscape that is still actively changing. The version of Oregon that most people visit is a fraction of what is actually here. I have been through this state corner to corner. The coast, the Cascades, the high desert, the Willamette Valley, the Wallowas, the Canyon Country, and I built the list. 15 places in Oregon that will completely change what you thought this state was. Let's get into it. Number 1, Crater Lake National Park, Klamath County. I said I would not repeat what everyone already knows, and then I put Crater Lake first. Here is why. Everyone knows Crater Lake is blue and beautiful. Almost nobody knows the actual story of how it got there, and the story is what makes it extraordinary. Mount Mazama, a 12,000-foot volcano, erupted 7,700 years ago in an event 40 times more powerful than the 1980 Mount St. Helens eruption then collapsed into its own emptied magma chamber. The caldera filled with snowmelt and rain over centuries with no rivers in or out, producing the deepest lake in the United States at 1,943 feet, and water so pure that the blue is produced entirely by the depth absorbing every wavelength except deep blue. The color is not a trick of light or a filter. It is physics. It is the deepest shade of blue available in a natural lake, and it is real, and it is extraordinary, and every photograph you have seen of it undersells it. Wizard Island rises from the center. The rim drive gives you 33 miles of viewpoints. Go in July when the rim road is fully open and the wildflowers on the caldera wall are blooming. This is the place that starts the list because no amount of familiarity with the photographs prepares you for standing at the rim. Number 2, the Oregon coast, Lincoln and Tillamook counties. The entire Oregon coast is publicly accessible, every beach, every headland, every tide pool, by law. In 1967, the Oregon Beach Bill established that the wet sand and dry sand to the vegetation line belongs to the public in perpetuity. That legal fact produced a coastline unlike any other state's. No private beach resorts blocking access, no gated communities on the waterfront, just 363 miles of accessible Pacific coast. Cannon Beach with Haystack Rock, a 235-foot sea stack with nesting tufted puffins in summer, is the anchor image of the Oregon coast, and it earns every photograph. But Cape Perpetua south of Yachts is the section that most people miss. A forested headland rising 800 feet directly from the ocean, with tide pools so rich in sea stars, anemones, and urchins that marine biologists use them as study sites. And Thor's Well, a hole in the basalt shelf that fills and drains with every wave in a display that looks designed and is entirely geological. The Oregon coast in winter, when the storms come in from the Pacific and the surf hits the headlands in explosions of white water, is one of the most dramatic coastal experiences available in the country. Number 3, the Columbia River Gorge and Multnomah Falls, Mulderp County. The Columbia River cuts through the Cascades and creates an 80-mile gorge with more than 90 waterfalls on the Oregon side alone. Multnomah Falls at 620 feet is the anchor. 2 tiers, a footbridge between them, and a trail to the top that puts you on the cliff above the upper looking down the gorge. And it is the most visited natural attraction in Oregon for reasons that are entirely justified. But the historic Columbia River Highway east of the falls connects Crown Point, Lateral Falls, Bridal Veil Falls, and Vista House in a single drive that is one of the finest scenic routes in the American Northwest. Crown Point at sunrise with the gorge opening below you and the river catching the first light and Mount Hood visible upstream is one of those views that stops conversation. The gorge in spring when the waterfalls are at full flow from snowmelt and the hillsides are green from winter. Rain is the version that photographers plan trips around. The gorge in fall when the vine maple turns red along the basalt walls is the version that makes people move to the Pacific Northwest and stay. Number 4, the Painted Hills, Wheeler County. 3 hours east of Portland, the landscape changes completely, and the Painted Hills unit of the John Day Fossil Beds National Monument gives you something that has no parallel in Oregon. These are low, rolling hills of volcanic ash and clay laid down over 35 million years, and the mineral content of each layer, iron, magnesium, aluminum, produces colors that change with moisture and light: red, gold, black, tan, ochre, and occasionally deep purple in bands that wrap around the hills in horizontal stripes. In late afternoon, the light rakes across the hills at a low angle, and the colors intensify until they look like they are lit from inside. The Painted Hills Overlook Trail is a 1/4 mile. The Carroll Rim Trail above gives you the aerial view of the entire formation against the high desert backdrop. This is one of the most photographed natural landscapes in Oregon, and one of the most completely unknown to people who do not live in the Pacific Northwest. If you are watching this and you have not subscribed yet, right now is the moment. Hit subscribe, drop a like on this video, and leave a comment below telling me which state you want this series to cover next. Every comment and every like pushes this video to more people who want exactly this kind of content. Hit that bell. Let's keep going. The Alvord Desert and Steens Mountain, Harney County. The most remote and least visited landscape in Oregon is in the southeastern corner of the state, and it is one of the most extraordinary places in the American West. Steens Mountain is a 30-mile fault block mountain that rises 9,700 feet on its west side and drops nearly a mile in a sheer escarpment on its east side, the largest fault block mountain in the lower 48. The view from the summit rim looking east is one of the finest in Oregon. The Alvord Desert spreads below you, a white alkali playa 12 miles long and 7 miles wide, the dry bed of an ancient lake, and beyond it the Nevada and Idaho ranges stack to the horizon. The playa is flat enough to drive on when dry, and the perspective from the floor, looking back up at the Steens Escarpment rising a mile above you, is disorienting in a way that most landscapes are not. Alvord Hot Springs on the western edge of the playa, a concrete trough fed by a geothermal spring at 170 degrees. Cooled to soaking temperature by the desert air, gives you a hot spring experience with the mountain behind you and the playa stretching away in front, and no other structure visible in any direction. Number 6, the Wallowa Mountains in Hells Canyon, Wallowa County. The Wallowa Mountains in northeastern Oregon are called the Alps of Oregon, and the comparison holds. The Eagle Cap Wilderness at the center of the range has 54 lakes, 22 peaks above 8,000 feet, and a trail network that produces the finest alpine backpacking in the state. Wallowa Lake, at the base of the mountains, glacially carved, turquoise, surrounded by moraines, is accessible by road, and the gondola to the summit of Mount Howard gives you aerial views of the Wallowa interior and the valley below. But Hells Canyon, the deepest river gorge in North America at 7,993 feet from the Seven Devils rim to the Snake River below, deeper than the Grand Canyon, is 30 miles east, and the two experienced in a single trip give you a geographic range that most states cannot offer in a region. The jet boat tours from Hells Canyon Dam take you 40 miles up the Snake River through the gorge with walls that close over you. The scale becomes real in a way that the overlook cannot provide. Number 7, the Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area, Lane and Douglas counties. The largest coastal sand dunes in North America run 40 miles along the central Oregon coast between Florence and Coos Bay, rising up to 500 feet from the beach and extending 3 miles inland. The dunes are a living landscape, constantly moving, burying forests, opening new views, filling old ones. And the tree islands that survive in the lower dune fields create a maze of open sand and dense vegetation that is completely disorienting to walk through without navigation. The off-highway vehicle area in the northern section is one of the finest dune riding destinations on the west coast. The non-motorized areas to the south give you the dunes in silence, Just the wind, the sand moving in sheets across the surface, the Pacific audible beyond the dune crest, and views from the high ridges that extend in every direction over a landscape that looks nothing like Oregon and everything like the Sahara. Number 8. Opal Creek Wilderness and Ancient Forest, Marion County. An hour east of Salem, the Opal Creek Wilderness protects one of the last unlogged watersheds in the Oregon Cascades. The Little North Santiam River, running through old-growth western red cedar and Douglas fir that has never been cut, producing a forest floor and a stream system of a complexity and health that logged watersheds cannot replicate. Opal Pool, a jade-green swimming hole fed by a waterfall in old-growth forest, is the destination of the main trail. 6 miles round trip on a former mining road that takes you past the ghost town of Jawbone Flats, a collection of 1930s mining buildings still standing in the forest. The water in Opal Creek is so clear that the green color is produced entirely by the reflected old-growth canopy above it. This is what all of the Cascades looked like before the 20th century, preserved in a single watershed because a coalition of activists spent 30 years fighting to protect it. You are 8 places deep and still watching, which means you are exactly the kind of person this series was built for. Subscribe right now, hit the like button, and drop a comment below telling me which of these 8 places surprised you most. I read every single one. Hit that bell so you do not miss what comes next. Let's keep going. Number 9. Smith Rock State Park, Deschutes County. The birthplace of American sport climbing is a state park in the high desert of Central Oregon. And you do not need to climb to understand why it is extraordinary. The Crooked River has cut a canyon through volcanic tuff and rhyolite, and the formations that result in Monkey Face, Morning Glory Wall, Brothers Formation, rise 400 feet from the canyon floor in columns and spires that are unlike any rock in Oregon. The Misery Ridge Trail climbs the canyon rim and gives you the aerial view of the entire formation with Monk Face, a 350-foot tower with a natural opening near the top that looks exactly like what it is named for, directly across the canyon. The irrigation-fed riparian corridor along the Crooked River at the canyon bottom has eagles, prairie falcons, golden eagles, and river otters, and the 3 volcano view from the rim trail, South Sister, Middle Sister, and Broken Top simultaneously, is the kind of panorama that Central Oregon produces with a consistency that seems designed. Number 10. The Metolius River, Jefferson County. The Metolius River springs fully formed from the base of Black Butte, a 6,400-foot cinder cone in the Cascades at a rate of 50,000 gallons per minute at a constant temperature of 48 degrees, and it runs 29 miles to Lake Billy Chinook without a single dam, making it the longest undammed river that originates in Oregon. The springs emerge from a hillside in the Deschutes National Forest, and within 200 feet, the river is 30 feet wide and moving fast through a ponderosa pine forest, so open and park-like that it looks maintained rather than natural. The fly fishing on the Metolius is catch and release only, and is considered the finest wild trout fishing in Oregon. The Camp Shaman Spring at the headwaters and the series of Forest Service campgrounds along the upper river are among the finest car camping situations in the Cascades. This river is one of the most beautiful and most unusual in the Pacific Northwest, and it is known primarily to fly fishermen and the people of Central Oregon who have been coming here for generations. Number 11. Cape Kiwanda and the Three Capes Scenic Route, Tillamook County. The Three Capes Scenic Route, Capes Mears, Lookout, and Kiwanda, runs 40 miles along the Tillamook County coast between Tillamook and Pacific City and gives you the Oregon coast at its most dramatic and its most accessible in a single drive. Cape Lookout State Park has a trail to a headland that extends 2 miles into the Pacific with waves breaking on both sides below and gray whale migration visible in winter and spring from the cliffs above. Cape Kiwanda is a sandstone headland above a beach where dory fishing boats are launched directly into the surf, a tradition specific to this beach that has been going on since the 1920s. and the dune above the cape gives you the finest coastal view on the North Oregon coast. Pacific City, below the cape, is a small town with one excellent brewery on the beach and a level of undevelopment that the coast north of it has been losing for decades. Number 12, the Umpqua Hot Springs, Douglas County. The most dramatic hot springs setting in Oregon is a series of tiered pools on a cliff face above the North Umpqua River in the Douglas County Cascades, reached by a half-mile trail from a forest road. The pools are carved into travertine rock, calcium carbonate deposits built up over centuries by the mineral-rich water, and they sit on a ledge 30 feet above the river with the forest rising above them and the river audible below. The upper pool is hottest, around 108 degrees, and the pools step down to 100 degrees as they approach the ledge. The North Umpqua River below is one of the finest whitewater rivers in Oregon, and the combination of Class 3 and 4 rapids and the fly fishing corridor managed upstream makes the Umpqua Corridor one of the most complete outdoor destinations in southern Oregon. Number 13, the John Day Fossil Beds, Clarno Unit, Wheeler County. The Clarno Unit of the John Day Fossil Beds, the less visited and more dramatic unit than the Painted Hills, contains mudstone palisades rising 150 feet from the canyon floor that are the eroded remains of ancient lahars, volcanic mudflows that buried a tropical forest 44 million years ago. The fossils preserved in the Clarno Formation are extraordinary. Trees, breadfruit, crocodiles, early horses, a tropical ecosystem from a period when Oregon had a climate similar to Panama. The trail of the fossils walk below the palisades, passes embedded fossil wood and bone visible in the mudstone at eye level. The palisades themselves at sunset, when the low light turns the tan and orange mudstone deep gold, and the shadows of the rock formations fall across the canyon floor, are one of the finest geological spectacles in the state. Number 14, Elkhorn Drive National Scenic Byway in the Elkhorn Mountains, Baker County. The 106-mile loop through the Elkhorn Mountains west of Baker City gives you the most complete single-day drive through the Blue Mountains landscape, a range of granite peaks that rise above 9,000 feet, mining ghost towns frozen in the 1890s, ponderosa pine forest, and mountain lakes at 7,000 feet that are clear enough to read by. Anthony Lakes at the north end of the drive is a high mountain lake at 7,100 feet surrounded by granite with a ski that closes in April and a summer recreation corridor that opens in July with fishing, hiking, and a silence in the Elkhorn Alpine Zone that Eastern Oregon produces uniquely. The ghost town of Granite, a former gold mining boomtown of 5,000 people now down to 24 permanent residents, has 1890s buildings still standing on the main street and an operating bar that has been there in one form or another since the gold rush. Number 15, the Crater Lake Rim at sunrise, and you stayed. You end this list where Oregon was always going to end, not at the viewpoint with the parking lot full, the one you earned. You made the reservation at Crater Lake Lodge. You woke at 4:30 when the building was silent and the air was cold, and the stars above the caldera were the brightest you had seen since the last time you were somewhere without electricity. You walked to the rim in the dark. You found the east rim overlook, and you sat on the volcanic rock at the edge of the caldera, and you waited. And the sky went from black to deep blue to lavender to the first thin line of gold above the Cascades to the east. And then the light came across the rim, and it hit the lake, and the water went from dark to the deepest blue you have ever seen a body of water produce, and Wizard Island caught the first light and went gold against the blue. And the entire caldera was in front of you in the silence of a morning that belonged entirely to you. That is Oregon. That is the version of this state that is available to anyone willing to show up for it. And now you know exactly where to go. Here is your assignment. 3 places. Write them in the comments right now, not the whole list. 3, the ones you are actually going to do first. That comment is a public commitment, and the psychology of public commitments is real. You are significantly more likely to follow through when you write it down. And when you have done your 3, come back and tell me which one surprised you. I want to know if the Alvord Desert Playa was as flat and as alien as I said it was. I want to know if the Opal Pool was everything. I want to know if you stayed at Crater Lake until the light was completely right. These are the stories worth having. If you made it to the end of this video, this channel was made for you. Subscribe right now, smash that like button, drop your 3 picks in the comments below, and hit the bell so you do not miss what is coming next. Go watch the next video right here, which covers the 30 best places in Montana. Because Montana is the state that people call Big Sky Country, and then only visit Glacier. And the reality of what is actually there will genuinely surprise you. I will see you there.